happy. Happy is good. Enough ticked off.
Good evening, everybody. How you doing? Good. Thank you all very much for coming. I'm Eli Nyberger. I'm Deputy Director here at the Public Library. We're so pleased to host this event. It's a great thing that we've been involved with for a couple years. We really love seeing the community come out and all the great ideas and everyone being so concise. That's the best part about it, even if they don't want to be. So I would like to introduce to you who's been the organizer of Ignite Ann Arbor since the very beginning. Please join me in welcoming Ryan Burns.
How's everyone doing? It's great to be back at the library. I want to thank the Ann Arbor District Library for hosting us for the second year. It's a great place to have an event like this, and we really appreciate it. Now, it's hard to believe, although this is our 12th event, it's actually been 10 years we've been doing this. I don't know how that's happened, but 2009 was the first Ignite in Ann Arbor at the Neutral Zone, and then we did it at the formerly Ross School of Business for a number of years, and last 2 years at the library. So what is Ignite? It's a night of 5-minute talks presented by A2 Geeks, a local nonprofit. Each speaker gets 20 slides that auto-advance every 15 seconds. So it's a bit of a challenge, and so it's important to hold your questions for halftime or for the post-party, which is going to be at Bar Louie down the street, Liberty and Division, I believe. So you're welcome to join us and ask questions of the speakers at that time. Before we get started, we normally fire up the audience with Ann Arbor's longest running single elimination rock, paper, scissors tournament. So the library has helpfully donated some swag to act as a prize. Look, it looks 3D, but it is 2D. 3D, 2D. Art by local artist Jeremy Wheeler, also former Ignite alumni from 5 years ago or so. This is our prize for rock, paper, scissors. This is how it's going to happen. Everyone's going to stand up if you can. We're just going to pair off. Rock, paper, scissors, if you're not familiar. Rock beats scissors, scissors beats paper, paper covers rock. So you're just going to play with the person next to you, and when you're eliminated, you can return to your seat. And then the last person left will go home with a lovely bag courtesy of AADL. So let's have everyone get up. Introduce yourself to the person next to you. And if you tie, just keep playing that person until somebody loses. We're just going to do it street style. We're not going to do any counting. Just go for it. Go for it. All right. Yep, find a new opponent if you're still in. Okay, there's two. Yep. We're getting there. We're getting there. Oh, that was dramatic, that one. Okay, who's left? Put up your hand if you're still left. Here we go, right in the front. We have 3 people? 4 people? Couple more? Okay. This young man here. Do you want to go against this fellow here? Okay, here it goes. Battle of Titans. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh! Okay. Who's left? Just. Well, someone's gonna have to have a, what do you call that? Magic game? Okay. We're down to 2 finalists. Let's bring out the prize one more time. Okay, I'll count it down this one because it's so dramatic. You guys got to figure it out. You guys maybe should do it. I don't want to get involved. I usually mess this up. I get a lot of comments. Okay, let's get straight. We're going to do it. We're going to do it on 3. We're going to do on 3. Okay, ready? Okay, are you ready? I'll count it. So it's certified. Okay, ready? 1. Okay, I'll start again. I'll be a conductor. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations. You're welcome. Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, one thing I'm going to mention. We'll let our lucky winner return to their seat. One thing I'm going to mention, oopsie daisies, before we get started. We are doing something slightly different this year that we've never done before. I'm just going to mention it briefly now so you can let it percolate. We are going to, at the end of the intermission, have a single round of slideshow karaoke, which will involve a deck of 20 slides from the previous 10 years of Ignite that I have assembled. And we're going to have 2 people from the audience come up and give a presentation with it. Blind. Okay. So just mull on that. Mull on that. Our first speaker tonight is a teacher with Tourette syndrome who says, "I can," when others say, "You can't." Please welcome Larry Biederman.
So at age 19, all of a sudden, I started making these weird noises, loud whooping sounds. Doctors were baffled, but eventually I was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, neurological condition. I make loud noises and sounds and movements, and it's disruptive wherever I go. It's been 29 years since that diagnosis. I still do have tics, which are the noises that I make, and I'm creating a summer camp for children with Tourette syndrome. Hopefully it'll start in 2020. Years ago, I would get a lot of angry and rude responses when I made my noises. But nowadays, it's more like awkward silence because people don't know how to respond. Currently, I teach at Insight School of Michigan. It's an online school, and everybody there understands my disability. And everybody loves me. And it's an online school, which really works well because my attention span is like that of a gnat. wherever I go, people often say to me, oh my gosh, I bet you can't go to movie theaters, restaurants, malls, stores, airplanes, whatever. People say you can't. And my response to that is, well, I can. I am going to go to all those places because I'm going to live my life without restrictions. And even if I'm disruptive involuntarily because I have a disability, I'm still going to go. And I'm going to enjoy my life, even if I'm creating disruptions because of my disability. And here's a real example from a restaurant. A guy came up to me and said, we're not enjoying our meal because of you. You need to move. What he didn't realize was that he had the problem. He wasn't enjoying his meal. He is the one who needed to move. And I did tell him that. And he didn't like that. But the other people that were with him kind of helped him figure out what this Tourette syndrome thing is. And I was enjoying my meal. And, the message of you have a problem really was quite the surprise. So I'm a teacher. And in the process of becoming a teacher, a lot of people told me that, maybe I shouldn't become a teacher. They had all sorts of ideas, like I shouldn't be a teacher. I shouldn't be an elementary teacher. I shouldn't be a middle school teacher. I shouldn't be a high school teacher. I got all of those. And they all had their interesting reasons why. And I didn't listen to any of them. I wanted to become a teacher, and I decided I will be a teacher. My students understand. They get it. They acclimate. They figure it out, occasional disruptions. You may have heard me making noises just before we all got started. And I also do summer camp for elementary school. So I hit all the age ranges, and I have done things that people have told me that I can't do. And libraries. I love it when someone says to me, oh, my gosh, I bet you can never go to a library. Well, where am I right now? I'm in a library, so I'm doing that just fine. But when they do ask me that, I have the perfect answer. I happen to be the president of the board of trustees of the Milan Public Library. So sometimes I go to a library to lead a board meeting or sign the paychecks. I don't get thrown out of the Milan Public Library. I've actually never been thrown out of a library, although occasionally I do get that curious, may I help you? And I just explain, I have Tourette syndrome. I'm making these noises involuntarily. And then they get it. And I explain, and we move on. And if people ask me, I explain. If they don't ask, So if you have a disability, I want you to know that you can succeed and you can follow your dreams. If someone tells you that you can't, they're placing a limitation on you, and they're not focusing on your abilities. Focus on your abilities. Be what you want to be. Go where you want to go. Do what you want to do. Search for and find the life that fits you. Might need do a little bit of trial and error to do that, but hopefully you can find what fits you best. You need to prep your toolbox to do that. Be proud of your abilities. Focus on what you can do best. Ask for help. If you have a disability, you might need to ask for help. And be honest. Don't try to hide it. That might make things worse. Sometimes you have changes in your life. You get that memo, new cover sheet for the TPS reports. So be ready to accept or conquer or remove changes in your life so that you can make things better. And failure will happen. It might just lead to success anyway. This is a picture of me doing liquid nitrogen. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate your time today. I have one more slide that's about to come up, which is me doing fire breathing. I enjoy doing that too as part of an educational process. I really love the concept of Ignite. Please feel free to ask me anything at the intermission or at the little event that we're having afterwards. Thank you so much, and a big thank you to my wife, Marla, who is the one who found this wonderful event and reminded me many times to apply, and all my friends and all my family who are here this evening. Thank you again.
Thanks, Larry. I should mention, I actually realized after the program was set that my daughter had been to one of Larry's camps, and he's so famous as a camp counselor that his camp was called Best of Biederman because it was like hits, So, thanks, Larry. Our next speaker is a local scientist with a passion for Pokemon, PowerPoint presentations, puzzles, planning parties, and presumably potatoes. Let's welcome Kayla Peck.
Oh, it's going. Hello, thank you for coming. Tonight I'm excited to share a spectacular story about an outstanding and yet often overlooked member of our personal pantry, the potato. So my humble history as a Spud supporter began in high school when we had to choose a fictional occupation and I decided to become a potato farmer. I mean, sure, I loved French fries just as much as the next teen, but I was mostly mesmerized by the potato's propensity for transformation. Unattractive and unpalatable, the potato can transform into a diversity of delicious dishes, whether they're mashed, hashed, baked, fried, scalloped, or turned into a soup or salad. On Wikipedia, there are 164 dishes that are listed as having potato as the main ingredient. Now, my enthusiasm for potatoes was well known, and when my family went on a cross-country road trip, my parents humored me by letting us stop at a potato museum in Idaho. So here is a styrofoam spud to celebrate the museum's possession of the world's largest potato chip. Over the years, I've gained a deeper appreciation for the potato, and so tonight, most of the information I'll be sharing with you comes from this fantastic book that gives the potato, quote, the biography it deserves, unquote. So let's start from the beginning. Potatoes are native to the Americas, specifically to the mountain regions of Peru. They can be traced back there to about 10,000 years ago. Then and now, there are hundreds of different types of potatoes. So one of the most interesting things about potatoes is that they started out as being extremely poisonous. Potatoes can produce ample amounts of glycoalkaloids, which when present at high enough concentrations can actually poison humans. Today, that poison is limited to just the sprouts and not the entire tuber. Now, being poisonous makes sense, right? If you're poisonous, you can deter ferocious vermin, such as this guy, from devouring you. So it makes sense for plants, but if they started out as poisonous, how can we eat them today? Potato biologists still debate this question, but it is generally accepted that the ancient Peruvian natives selected the least toxic of their potatoes to keep, breed, and grow. Over thousands of years, it led to the production of a potato that was not poisonous. The Peruvians thrived off the potato. Not only can it grow at high altitudes and survive dry spells, it provides numerous necessary nutrients. So how did the potato go from becoming a Peruvian staple to becoming a worldwide phenomenon? In the 1500s, Spanish adventurers stumbled across the potato, but they didn't really think it was all that in a bag of chips. In fact, historians have a really hard time figuring out when the potato was brought to Europe. One of the reasons for this is due to a merry language mishap. Potatoes were called papas in the Americas, but patatas in Spain due to their resemblance to the sweet potato, which was called batatas. At some point, the two were used interchangeably and often confused, but it's important to note that the sweet potato and the potato are not at all related. One popular origin story is that Sir Walter Raleigh brought the potato as a gift to the Virgin Queen Elizabeth. He claimed that the potato came from Virginia, which he had named in her honor, but he knew, and we knew, that it didn't. So regardless of how it was introduced, the potato was initially extremely unpopular. So to help it catch on, a philanthropic physician who recognized the nutritional properties of the potato convinced Marie Antoinette to wear potato flowers in her hair, and then it became super popular. But it didn't require royalty to become popular in other regions, such as Ireland. There, after its introduction, the Irish people were able to thrive on the potato due to all of those qualities that made it so invaluable to Peruvians. But the thousands of years of breeding that caused the potato to lose its poison also reduced its genetic diversity, which made it vulnerable to pathogens. In 1845, a fungus wiped out potato crops across Europe, leaving the people who relied on them with nothing to eat. Now, I've mentioned multiple times the nutritional properties of the potato, and that's so I can wrap up with a fascinating fact. You can survive living only on potatoes, and the amount of potato crop it would take to feed you could also recycle your carbon dioxide. That means that Andy Weir, author of The Martian, did his homework. When Matt Damon takes potatoes up into space, he could theoretically live on just the potatoes for food and oxygen. Now, if this talk has made you want to become a potato enthusiast, like myself, feel free to visit Idaho. While you're there, you can see the world's largest potato chip, maybe even go in the month of September, which is National Potato Month. And on your trip, you can actually stay in this spectacular potato that someone has turned into an Airbnb. Now, while you're sleeping soundly inside a spud, you can reflect on the potato's pilgrimage from a poisonous plant to a necessary nutrient to a suitable space companion. And of course, to the diversity of dishes we know and love today. Thank you.
Thanks, Kayla. You know, that scene with Walter Raleigh is actually in one of the Queen Elizabeth movies. I can't remember which one, but he presents her with this basket of potatoes, and then she like takes one and just takes a bite out of a raw potato, and he's like, very nourishing. Our next speaker is a graduate at the University of Michigan School of Social Work. Please welcome Alicia Sutton.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight we are going to talk a little about anger. I know there have been times that I've expressed anger, and I'm pretty sure some of you can relate to anger. So we're just going to think about one time in particular that you've been angry, and I'm saying angry and yes. So one instance is road rage. Perhaps you're running late for a meeting, or someone cut you off, or you're downtown Ann Arbor trying to find parking over a weekend. I know that stresses me out and causes anger for me. Another instance I can think of is being hangry. I'm always hangry. So that's like being hungry and angry at the same time. I hope none of you are hangry right now. Just give us a little bit of time, we'll be done. But that's one of the examples, and it is living in a real life Snickers commercial. You're not you when you're hungry. So, we're talking about anger, and there's one group of people who are often labeled as angry. So if you're kind of thinking about who, cue their Jeopardy music in your head, singing along. You want to know who that is? Black women. There's this myth of the angry black woman. It is perpetuated by stereotypes in movies, on TV shows, and social media. It just depends on where you're at. It's all over the place. It's just really negative. So it's we're this mystical creature who's in this lair, and you can't disturb this angry black woman or she's going to jump out and attack you. It sounds absolutely ridiculous, right? Who would think of that? Can you imagine creeping around this cave just to not disturb this person? So we often hear these very negative terms. We're disrespectful, we're rude, we're angry and hostile. It's just constant negativity all the time. And one thing that we can do is definitely work to change some of these narratives. So sit back. I'm going to talk to you tonight about some things that may make us angry, or some things that we can do to kind of get rid of this myth. So you also may hear some terms that you aren't familiar with, and if you aren't, that's okay. Your neighbor may know, and your neighbor can help you out. So just have a seat, relax, and we're going to learn why a black woman may be angry. So one of the things that may make a black woman angry is microaggressions. It may be a new term to some of you. They're indirect, subtle, or unintentional instances of discrimination. So walking up to a black woman that you don't know and saying, "Hey, girlfriend," or "Where are you really from?" or "You don't act black," or "I don't see color." So one of the ways that we can change these narratives, as I said before, is by educating each other, by challenging these stereotypes and changing these narratives, so that we can be more inclusive and collective as a society and treat us as humans. So the first thing I like to say is that black women are beautiful. We're radiant, we're wonderfully made. We have sun that is kissed by the, we're skin by sun, skins kissed by the sun, and we have an unconventional beauty. Also, we are not bound by the limitations of others. Just because you think we can't do something, we definitely can. See you, Larry. So we're never limited by somebody else's opinion of us, because we are capable. We're also beautiful in all different shapes, sizes, heights, and complexions. And just because we have a shared identity, we also do have different lived experiences. But we also can come together in a spirit of sisterhood to be more supportive of each other. And I know some people may think that all black women are loud. That's not the case. Some of us are extroverted and introverted, and we're fine either way. We also have emotions, thoughts, and feelings. We can be angry, we can be upset, we can be happy, we can be loving, and we can have opinions. Just because we have an opinion, it doesn't mean that we're being rude or angry. It just means that we have an opinion. We also can be cultured and fun. Some of us are relaxed and reserved. Some of us are social beings, and we are just amazing people who are different things. Also, I mentioned earlier that we're very unique. With that being said, I have a PSA. Please do not walk up to a black woman and touch her hair or ask if it's her hair. Just say, I like your hair. And that's a great compliment. So, as much as I talk about how wonderful black women are, I want you to remember that all women are beautiful. That doesn't negate the fact that, other women of other cultures aren't beautiful. We're all beautiful. I'm just talking about black women tonight because we don't get that chance. So it's 2019, and the time has come for us to change these negative narratives about the angry black woman. Y'all have been educated a little bit, and we hope that you join us in dismantling this myth. Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. Our next speaker is a teacher in Detroit who practices building a bridge between lifelong learning, adventure, and stress relief. Please welcome Lisa Lipscomb.
Some people know me as the lady who loves to do something new. Other people know me as the woman who decided to do a 50 before 50 challenge. On my 49th birthday, I decided to do 50 new things before my 50th birthday. You'll see some of the highlights of them. So adventure is my middle name. There's nothing I love more than doing something new, and this being one of them. So it's become a 50 before 50 and beyond challenge. I love it so much that now I'm going to do 55 new things before turning 55. It started with the 40 days of awesome, so I walked or ran at least a mile every day from Thanksgiving to New Year's. And then I took a bodybuilding class with a group of women. So we started with being physical. I was invited to be the keynote speaker for the Community Up CRA conference. So imagine a teacher talking to a room full of bankers about team building and employee engagement. Yeah, that was fun. In order to alleviate the tension and the stress and relax from all the exercise, I went to Cryoberg and stood in a tube that they let liquid nitrogen come up in, and the temperature dropped, and it was supposed to heal the soreness. I'm not so sure it did that. Chocolate is my type, get it? So I went to Garrido's Bistro and had my first ultimate hot chocolate dessert. I am a chocolate lover. Then I went to John King Bookstore for the first time and saw the million books that they brag about. I am a foodie, so I went to Social Sushi at Techtown in Detroit and created my first sushi rolls. This is called the Detroit Roll, and I was in a room full of people who step by step created, then ate their sushi rolls. Camp Burt Shirley has a partnership with Detroit Public Schools, so after all the students had a chance to shoot a bow and arrow, Miss Lipscomb needed to shoot the bow and arrow. And on my first shot, I hit the bear right in the butt. Community is my thing, so I marched in the March for Public Education at Clark Park. I was also a speaker there. I took a weekend workshop with Les Brown, and then I sat in on a panel of women who were part of a organization. I am a child at heart, so wearing mixed match shoes is my thing. My students noticed and wanted to know if they could write on them. I like spending time with my students at recess playing with sidewalk chalk, and getting my face painted is my idea of fun. I went to Denver, Colorado for the first time. This is me doing a joy jump after I hiked Emerald Lake Trail. The elevation was over 10,000 feet, and then I stood at the YMCA statue. This was my first hug from a unicorn, and she was the bodybuilding instructor at the beginning of my slides. She decided to leave Michigan and go on to warm Florida, where she lives now. Her friendship is worth $1 million. I got on a train and went to Chicago, got on a double-decker, and went across the country to Los Angeles, where I hiked the boardwalk of beaches, and then flew on a plane up to the Redwood Forest, which had been on my bucket list forever. I came back home and decided to come to Ann Arbor and go to Frank Lloyd Wright Smith House. I love the architecture of Frank Lloyd Wright, and I took the tour where I could take pictures in and outside the structure, and that was like heaven. So I love coloring adult coloring books, and I took a class on how to draw mandalas so that if I don't have a coloring book ready, I can draw my own, and I've taught many people how to do that. Additionally, This is my youngest grandson, Hunter, who was born during this time period 3 months early. And he spent a little bit of time being in the woods. It was up and down, but as you can see now, he's happy and healthy and vibrant, and his smile is everything. This is my 50th birthday. So my mom came by to see me early. She doesn't like being out. I took myself to Tiffany's and bought myself my first ring. My family knows I love sushi, so they took me out to sushi for dinner. The young people in my family, some of those are my kids, took me to the cupcake station because they said I didn't really need a cake. It's too hard to burn it off. I went to my first gong meditation class, and this is 2-year-old Lisa, who had no idea of the things to come. So beyond 50, I've dog sat for my nephew's Dalmatian, Zuko. We had all kinds of adventures teaching him about Dalmatians, and I completed my first sailboat race. So come as you are, but don't stay as you are. How will you celebrate your next milestone birthday? What are you going to do different? Lifelong learning is the key to everything exciting that you could think of and more. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, our next speaker is an entrepreneur and engineer passionate about making our transportation more sustainable. Please welcome Stephen Sherman.
The world is starting to write the 5th chapter of transportation and mobility, the result of which will drastically change our current systems with 10x benefits in cost, safety, accessibility, and affordability. But before we look to the future, we need to look to the past. Summed up by this Times of London headline from 1894 about none other than horse manure, society was concerned about transportation sustainability even before the car. Fortunately, that prediction didn't come to fruition, and we made it to the first sign of the automobile. Amongst a sea of horses in this 1900 NYC Easter parade, we see but a single car. Just 13 years later, and we can see that the way people get around has drastically changed as one horse is left amongst all these cars. Incumbents thought they had decades to adopt, but instead learned that exponential technologies take over faster than most predict. Fast forward today, and we have undreamed of levels of mobility and freedom, with an industry behind it that employs millions and produces a copy of its product every 3 seconds. But this is not without serious side effects. We live with 1.2 million global roadway fatalities every year, energy systems 95% dependent on oil and petroleum, and 1/3 of climate change causing greenhouse gas emissions. We've reshaped our cities to be built around cars and parking instead of people. Congestion eats 4 days of our lives every year, and we have an aging and costly infrastructure with a funding gap of $1 trillion through 2025. Fortunately, these externalities are beginning to bump into a new paradigm, the automotive aces. And just like the car put the horse to pasture, these two have the promise to reduce these externalities. The future is one that is automated, connected, electric, shared, and solar powered. These are trends and technologies that hunt in packs, converging with each other and reinforcing one another. E is for electric. Electric vehicles have the ability to put a literal smile on your face thanks to their instant torque. They offer 3 times the efficiency of their gas mobiles and the ability to leverage lower cost, domestically produced, less volatile electricity. They emit 0 tailpipe emissions, dramatically improving local air quality, and have the convenience of charging at home. They also have significantly less maintenance, efforts, and costs. Perhaps that's why over 400,000 people made a reservation for a car few had actually seen in person, the Tesla Model 3. And now we're seeing the traditional automakers wake up to this opportunity, lest they become a fossil. To date, the Tesla Model 3 has outsold its German internal combustion engine competitors from Mercedes, BMW, and Audi combined. S is for solar, another exponential technology, both in price reductions as well as installed capacity. Solar has seen a 70% drop in price in the past decade with a booming new industry. Ford and Edison's two industries are finally converging together as customers begin to live the PV EV dream of driving on the sun and eliminating costly, dirty, rented utility bills. C is for connected. As cars finally move from typewriter to smartphone and begin connecting, communicating, and coordinating with each other and other systems, they unlock tremendous value, efficiency, and safety. A is for autonomous. Ready or not, here they come. We've all seen the headlines. It's not a question of if, but when. And when they do arrive, they'll reshape the way we get around greater than maybe anything humanity has seen in the past. S is for shared. The convergence of these trends unlocked a new business model innovation, transportation as a service. Car ownership becomes optional and joyful rather than forced and a necessity, as rides are just a hail away. So I hope that by 2030, I'll be back up here, maybe at Ignite again, asking us to spot the human driver, personally owned vehicle, and internal combustion engine, especially in our city centers where we need this disruption the most. So, as citizens, consumers, policymakers, engineers, and entrepreneurs, all of us, all of you, have a piece in authoring this new chapter. My goal is to make sure it's one that's safer, cleaner, more equitable, productive, affordable, and has a pleasant ending. Thank you.
Right, our next speaker is a woman who wears many caps. She's a storyteller, an advocate, and a student of life. Please welcome Natalie McKinney.
Life will throw you curveballs, said my late father, Nathan McKinney. On July 10th of 2018, last year, life threw me the biggest curveball of my adulthood, and I was losing him unexpectedly, losing a sense of self, purpose, and feeling out of control. Often I would say, home has left me because I never gotten a chance to leave it. Everything that made it home to me no longer felt inviting or warm. Until one day, I recalled a time in my childhood when my father magically made a quarter appear from behind my ear. Cliche, I know. But although it wasn't actually there, it still was. I want you to hold on to that. Here's the thing I learned about exception finding. It's easy to sit in all that has gone wrong, but it takes digging deep to reclaim what and how it will define its place in your life. See, my conviction is the idea that I'm the last one standing in my childhood home, while at the same time feeling as if I'm a long way from feeling home again. It's old bones, it's lackluster walls, it's uncomfortable stillness. All leaves a dull ache in my heart. Then I think to myself, what about the tears of laughter and blessed olive oil to lubricate those same bones? I recall memories of sofa shopping that inspired the feng shui in our living room, or even the countless nights my father recorded music in our basement studio, telling my mother to keep us quiet for just a moment as children. I mean, home resided in every cup of coffee, jam session, great debate, even every pot of spaghetti. So perhaps home isn't a place, but it's the spirit. And we are all simply the vehicles to deliver the various experiences that bring us together with one another. Everybody's built a house before. How, you say? Think of any empty container and liquid of your choice. Now recall the various forms in which that liquid takes, depending on the container it's poured into. Home takes the form of any person, place, or thing if you truly think about it. There's nothing is forever, and everything's on borrowed time. The blueprint still remains. The framework, it still stands. It's built in the spirit of compassion and love and daring to take a chance on time we can't quite measure, but memories that are infinite. He used to tell me, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% what you make it. How you react. 90% how you react. I'm sorry. You go out there and have yourself a good day. He would say while nodding his head and raising his coffee to cheers. I still choose to do that by partaking in his favorite meal to prepare or listening to the soundtrack of the dishes clinking against the kitchen sink. Even the trickling sounds of the coffee maker recalling his request for 6 cups and 3 scoops. Coffee has never really been my jam, but I digress. My point is that if you believe in it, it is there. So I'll leave you with this message. When life throws you that next curveball, hit it out the park and play the cards you were dealt like it's a winning hand. When you lose your footing and can't seem to pick up where you left off, your anxiety gets the best of you, start where you're at. And lastly, when you can't seem to grasp the idea of inevitable change, like the quarter my father found behind my ear, flip it on its head and know that it still is. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. Our next speaker doesn't need any more 8-bit computers, but if you do happen to have one with you, he would like to talk to you. Let's welcome James Kruth.
So I'm going to start with a question that probably everyone is asking themselves right now, and that's why use an 8-bit computer in 2019? Well, there's a long answer and a short answer to that question. And tonight we'll start with the short answer. That is games. Everyone loves games, and there are some incredible games that were written in the 80s and 90s. And it turns out that if you're going to play these games, you need an older computer. But this prompts another question. Why would I want to blast this pixelated happy little alien when I could blast a 3D high-definition alien? What makes these old games so interesting? Well, it's actually the limitations. When you take an old computer, the developers needed to be very, very creative and focus on gameplay because the graphics, well, look like these slides. Now, this is why retro consoles keep on selling out year after year. And it's what makes these games incredible. And I started to think, with these old computers, is there more to learn? Is there more I can discover? Could they be useful for other things than just games? Turns out they are, in fact. Now, what I'm about to show you here is a word processor. It's part of a productivity suite called AppleWorks. Now, this is in many ways a precursor to MS Office. I've been using this to type on and off for the past 6 months, and it's been magical. You see, modern computers are basically distraction factories. We can't tell the signal from the noise because there's so much going on. And so when we're using these limited computers, we start to have this much nicer experience. It turns out that it's like taking a nice walk in the park as opposed to being in the middle of a busy city. And also, just incidentally, I had dark mode way before anyone in this audience. So you're probably asking yourself, is there a downside? And yeah, these computers can be a little tougher to use. But the thing about it is that all of the problems, printing, transferring files, are being worked on, and they're getting better because there's a great community out there. So I've removed all the distraction from my computer and then reintroduced it with a web browser. Because why not? So I was trying to, browse the web on my computer, but there's just one little problem. See, the modern web has all of this security involved in it. And I need another more powerful computer to be able to talk to the web. I thought this was a sign. Maybe there's something else out there. I mean, there's more to the internet than just a web, right? It turns out there is. There's this old computer protocol called Telnet, designed in 1969. And it's great. Our 8-bit friends, they can talk to each other using this computer or this protocol very easily. So what do you do with this? Well, 80s era social networking. This is a BBS, or a bulletin board system. And this is how people communicated with computers before the internet. And there are hundreds of these still in operation on the internet today. And a lot of them are even running on old 8-bit hardware. Now, some of you might recognize this. This is a BASIC program. We've talked about a lot of things, but let's talk about programming. I wrote my first program in BASIC, and it's still really dear to my heart. Now, a few days ago, I booted up my trusty Apple IIe, typed in this program, and what I want to point out is I didn't have to load anything, configure anything. It just worked. Programming is part of the DNA of these computers, and that makes them special. Here's a slightly more complicated program. Now, I know that this is hard to read and really dense. It's actually a contest entry, but what's cool about it is this is an entire game, including graphics, in just 2 lines of code. Imagine what you could do in 100 lines of code. The point here is that code is part of the user interface for these computers. It's how you interact. These are computers that you control rather than the computer controlling you. Now, I think at this point you're all saying to yourself, how do I get started? Right? So there's really 2 ways you can do it. The first way is that you go out to eBay, you buy a bunch of hardware, you spend a ton of money, you end up, learning how to maintain all of this stuff, and then when you turn it on, you hope that the magic smoke doesn't escape. So if that's not your thing, you could also run an emulator, and that's what I'd suggest for almost everyone. Now, I've included in my last slide here a link to an emulator. I'm also trying to start a retro technology meetup, A2 Retro Tech, and my contact information. Finally, in February at the AADL, if you like this, you can learn to program like it's 1980. And so I hope to see all of you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, James. We're going to have a short 5 to 10 minute break. Then we're going to come back with slide deck karaoke. It's going to be crazy. And I think 4 more talks. So see you in, let's say, 9 minutes.
close it out too. Oh no, it's under there. It's there.
Oh, it's under there. Is this it?
After you finish the last call, I can come back up and close it out. I can close it out after the last call. After you welcome the last speaker.
So we'll get started in about 2 minutes. Okay. We can take our seats. I forgot that's what the kids do now, right? Oh, there we go. Smile. All right. Oh, whoop. Ann Arbor's finest. All right, before we get started in the second half, we're just going to mention one thing. A Ignite alumni from last year, David Lorich, I don't know if you remember his Lego talk, but he has a set up for being adopted as an official Lego set. It's a model of the Mackinac Hotel, and that's a picture of it. And if you search for Lego Ideas Mackinac with a C, you can vote for this, and maybe it'll be a official Lego set, official Michigan Lego set. So check that out if you get a chance later. So PowerPoint. I'm sorry, didn't want to buzz market any particular brand of slide software. Slide deck karaoke. We've never done this before. We're going to try it out. It's going to be crazy. I have assembled 20 slides. It's a standard Ignite presentation, 20 slides, from the previous 10 years of Ignite slides. Okay? Starting with the very first slide shown at Ignite Ann Arbor, created by this gentleman behind the screen. So, we're going to get 2 volunteers from the audience up here who look very enthusiastic and full of words. And they're going to do a Maverick and Goose routine, so if, a little more likely to keep the flow going. So, what else do I have to say? I think that's it. Can I get some volunteers? Let me also mention, as a sweetener, and we're mostly looking for audience members that are not already speakers, but 3D, but we will call on you if no one else raises their hand. Just a moment. 3D, 2D. We have 2 of these bags, just as a sweetener. Do we have any volunteers? Spur of the moment. Spur of the moment. We're getting a couple of volunteers. Okay, we have 2 volunteers. Are you ready? All right. Come on up. Introduce yourselves. All right. So let's introduce yourselves.
Hey, my name's Beth, and I work here at the library.
Great. And Beth, are you going to be more Maverick or more Goose in this combo? Okay. We'll give you a minute to think about it.
Yeah, I don't know either, so we're gonna have a hard time up here tonight. Hi, I'm Spencer. I'm here locally, live over in Ypsi, and I'm a business consultant with the SBDC.
Congratulations. Well, this is going to be really exciting. What's the signal? He'll give you a heads up. You can do whatever you want. You're each going to get a mic, and just feel the room. Feel it.
Should we just take a minute?
Yeah, just take a minute. Good luck.
Take it away.
Ready? All right, so we look back in history and we wonder, where did the modern platypus come from? Where did it come from? And the answer is right here. You see that a platypus is made of 2 things, right? Solaris, the sun, and Java, coffee.
And as anyone would know when you're learning about the comic book characters, it's all about, not just the drawing, but the perspective.
And that's why we need big data to tell us about the perspectives. Perspectives need to be well-rounded. How would a platypus think about this? How would a human think about this? These are the things big data can answer for us, and that's why we need big data to step up.
Now, when it comes to chamber music, we have experienced such beautiful music in this town, and at the Carytown thing down
chamber
the road.
thing, yeah.
Yeah. And I think Ann Arbor is pretty well known for that. Yeah, go ahead.
It's also really well known for privacy breaches of data. Just on a regular, ongoing basis, data breach this way, data breach that way, which is why we need big data to take lessons from chamber music.
When you go incognito on the internet,
they can't see you.
They can't see me, and so it's a useful way to be anonymous.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of like these people. These people are what you look like to Google when you use incognito mode. Google's like, who is this? Is that a platypus? Is that a Java? I don't know. I have big data. It's not that guy though.
Now, this guy, he said he was not a crook. It's hard to know these days because I'm speaking for myself, not for the library, but
we appreciate that disclaimer.
Crooks go ahead.
Well, there are crooks, yeah. Like the Burning Man, he's an absolute crook. Has anybody been to Burning Man before? Then we have, one crazy person in the room. Yeah. How was that experience? Any good? Good?
Oh, let me tell you about something. It's how to make a pop can stove. It's super simple. You just cut the
They
pop
do that
can.
at Burning Man, I think.
Yeah, they totally need to do it at Burning Man because they light fires. And this way, you can
do it effectively.
Do the thing.
Yep. And I think the best way to do that is to then make some Everclear.
Always.
Yeah, I use Everclear for everything. My glasses, when I wake up, my eyes. I just put it right on my eyes, but it's a little... I tried it on the snow this morning. I said Everclear, and it just didn't go anywhere, though.
What happens when you throw Everclear on your kitchen
This is my house. This is this morning. I'm sorry.
So don't ever bring your Everclear on a boat if you're thinking that you might...
have a house too.
A house fire.
Yeah,
because it's a whole house fire. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And if the one place you should bring Everclear is platypus hunting.
Oh, you keep bringing that around.
And this right here is what happened to me last summer. I did have a wig on, and we did see some interesting experiences there.
Yeah, going back to, there's always been this thing between U of M and EMU, and it goes back as far as 1982, or even possibly before that.
Maybe. And we ask ourselves, with this war between EMU and UMich, who's really affected? These people, these individuals, groups, things, cats are the people who are being affected. So watch your words when you have something which is happening.
Apathy. We
Bad
just can't
stuff.
have that anymore.
No, it's not okay.
I can't
say no.
And I'm tired of how people just don't care about the fact that apathy is really ruining our lives.
It's really bad. You need to say no. You just need to know like that. If this is how you treated apathy, we would have such an interesting city. We'd have somebody in every alley with a different instrument. We'd have somebody with chamber music. We'd have somebody with big data. We would have alleys full of musicians.
And that way, there would be more bees available.
Right.
Because
very
the
important
bees
to have. Right.
And
colony collapse disorder.
Which is essentially... I think they did come from the platypus in an existential way. Yeah.
Yep. And we ask how did that evolve over time? Actually, these will be the winning lottery numbers tomorrow. We got these with big data, so write them down. Do not take pictures, please. It was a leaked information. They did not use an incognito browser.
Oh, my favorite. So when you put a cat together with a donkey, it's surprising, but you could actually win a trophy. And what does it mean, though, when you do? Because...
we don't know. We just don't know.
Thank you. I can't accept the bag.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
She can't accept the bag.
Thank you.
They have ethics at the library, people. Let's have a hand for ethics. Well, I didn't know how that was going to go, and I'd say it went fairly well. So thank you to both of you for stepping up. That was a bit of a bit of an ask, but I appreciate it. All right, our first speaker in the second half is passionate about promoting a plant-based lifestyle. Please welcome Rhea Danielle York.
Please raise your hand if you think that eating healthy is expensive. Look at all of those hands. Okay, let's take a couple steps back, because what exactly is healthy food anyway? I think we could all agree that healthy food includes protein, nuts, seeds, fruits, vegetables, leafy greens, grains, the stuff our parents encouraged us to eat to grow up nice and strong. And I grew up eating a healthy diet, but I also grew up in a very frugal household. So much of what we ate was determined by what was on sale each week at our local grocery store. So quite naturally, when I grew up, I crafted my grocery budget on the same principles, which worked fine until I decided to adopt a plant-based lifestyle 2 years ago. I really had a desire to eat more organic produce, which has the potential to be up to 47% more expensive than conventional produce. So I was stressed out, my grocery budget was stretched out, and I had to start thinking outside of the box. I started shopping at produce markets because I noticed that prices were better, the variety was greater, and if I shopped towards the end of the day, I could get really steep discounts on produce that they needed to clear from the shelves to make room for new shipments. I also started attending farmers markets, which had even better prices, even fresher produce, and since I was buying directly from farmers, I had the opportunity to negotiate prices even further. This year, I joined my first CSA, which has been super exciting, not only to support local urban gardening, but also because I get access to produce that I've never seen before, like pink celery and fish peppers. I've learned to reduce waste by freezing or otherwise preserving produce, and sometimes I prefer to buy frozen produce because it's honestly almost the same nutritionally as fresh. And I know that canned produce gets a really bad reputation, but honestly it's very accessible, cost-effective, convenient, and as long as I rinse off the excess sodium before I consume it, it's still comparable to fresh produce nutritionally. I still enjoy shopping at grocery marts, and I found that Aldi has some of the best prices on organic products, and not just produce, organic spices, protein, snacks, you name it. Kroger is one of my favorite stores because they carry the brand Simple Truth, which has lots of organic and healthy items. Kroger also has a free, easy-to-use digital coupon platform that offers discounts on those Simple Truth products. All I have to do is enter my phone number at checkout, and the program tracks all of my purchases. Later, Kroger will mail me coupons for the items that I purchase most frequently. Meijer has a commitment to support local companies and local brands. They also have a free digital coupon platform called mPerks. What I really like about Meijer is that in addition to tracking my purchases to mail me coupons later, they also track to give me customized digital coupon offers. And since they support local brands and companies, a lot of these digital offers are for local produce and organic goods. And I know that Whole Foods has a reputation for taking your whole paycheck. But honestly, they offer sales frequently. And since I'm an Amazon Prime member, I get an extra 10% off of all sale products. And I also get access to exclusive Prime member only deals. I absolutely love coupons, and my favorite way to acquire them is simply asking companies for them. I found that they rarely say no because companies want nothing more than a happy, repeat customer. I also use a free app called Makina that allows you to earn cash back only on healthy products. Now, Makina is retail agnostic, so whether I shop at the produce market, Kroger, Meijer, it doesn't matter. I still get the opportunity to earn cash back. All I need to do is choose a rebate, upload my receipt, earn points that way, or I don't have to shop at all. I can just take surveys or quizzes to learn more about healthy brands and receive points for cash back that way. So after 2 years of a lot of experiments, I found that eating healthy isn't expensive at all. And I hope that in following my journey, you found some tips and tools to help you make eating healthy more affordable as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Our next speaker helps people have fun with ham radio. When he's not on this stage, you can sometimes find him manning the ham radio booth at the Hands-On Museum just up the street. Please welcome Dan Romanchik.
Thank you very much. When I tell people I'm a ham radio operator, they look at me like I'm Herman Munster here. Then the next thing they say, do they still do that?
Well, I'm here to tell you that we do still do that. In fact, there are more amateur radio operators in the U.S. now than ever before, over 750,000. And we're doing cool things with new technologies, including satellites. One of the things that ham radio actually have been sending up satellites for over 50 years. But with the advent of the CubeSats, there are more satellites up there now than ever before. There's several dozen of them, and ham radio operators can talk to them. You don't need a lot of equipment either to talk to these satellites. All you need is a simple handheld transceiver and a hand-built antenna. One of the cool things that satellite operators do is activate Walmart parking lots. They go to Walmarts around the country and talk to other hams in Walmart parking lots. And they get extra points if they get the manager of the Walmart to come out and participate. We also have a geostationary satellite up now, and this is a very cool thing. It takes a little bit more equipment than the other satellites, but you can do lots of fancy things with it. Because radio equipment now is so small and portable, we have guys going up on summits and operating from the summits. This is a guy with his pet goats who haul his equipment up, and he talks to people all over the world with very simple equipment. Parks on the air. This is a friend of mine, Tom, who's operating from the Iona State Recreation Area. And, you know, what a beautiful spot, huh? I personally like to operate from lighthouses. And this is my operating position at the Point O'Bark Lighthouse up in the Thumb. And I had a great day there. And all this equipment fits in that red toolbox, which means I can take it almost anywhere I go. But we still do a lot of traditional ham radio, but with a modern twist. This is a software-defined radio. The radio itself is in the box on the left, and the box on the right is just the user interface. It's really just a PC. Because it's a PC, you can operate it with any computer. So you can operate remotely with your cell phone from anywhere in the world, as long as you have a cell phone connection. We also do some what are called digital modes. These are fancy computer-driven modes that really enhance the performance of amateur radio. You can operate with really poor band conditions and crummy antennas, and it works great. We're also setting up digital networks. Some of the Wi-Fi frequencies are actually in amateur radio bands, and we can set up these digital networks for public service events. And public service is still a big thing in ham radio. Here in Washtenaw County, we have an organization called Skywarn, and we send out ham radio operators around the country when there's severe weather, and we're the eyes and ears for the Washtenaw County Emergency Management Department. But we're still hackers. I sometimes joke that ham radio operators are really the original hackers. Here you see some guys building some stuff. Tell you the truth, I'm not sure exactly what they're building, but they're very intent on it, aren't they? This is a radio that was built for hacking. For $129, you get a complete shortwave radio, but the fun is in making it your own, making a box, and you can change it because it's built on an Arduino. You can change the software and the hardware. We hack antennas too. This is built from stuff you buy at any hardware store. For $5, you have a whole satellite antenna here. And while the technology is cool, it's still about personal connections. This is a group called Youngsters on the Air, which gathers young adults and teenagers where they play with radios but form personal connections. We also have a great local amateur radio community with two great clubs, the University of Michigan Club and the Aero Club. Here, Don is mentoring Ashley in how to make contacts on shortwave at Field Day. And we invite you to come to Field Day in June. Field Day is in June. My mission is to help people have fun with ham radio, as Ryan said. If you want to get into ham radio, please get in touch with me.
Thanks, Dan. Our penultimate speaker is writer, designer, and proud Midwesterner, Julie Cruz.
So I'm going to start with the cliche by defining the thing that I want to talk about. Nonconformity, or the failure to conform to an established creed, rule, or practice. I, for one, think this definition is a little lame because, for one, it uses the word conform in the definition of nonconformity, so isn't that kind of redundant? But number two, why the word failure? Why is not agreeing to certain rules a misdemeanor or an absence of something? That leads me to talk about a book that really inspired this whole talk, and it's called Who Put This Song On? By Morgan Parker. And it tells the story of 17-year-old Morgan Parker, who's living in a very rich, very white, very Christian, very suburban environment and feels repressed and depressed by the rules around her and imposed on her. So she decides to make up some of her own. Here are some of them. Darkness isn't a bad thing. Don't follow rules you don't understand. There's a lot of stuff no one knows. Don't trust know-it-alls. And finally, you can escape. Now, I think it's super badass that at such a young age, 17-year-old Morgan is able to say, screw what other people are telling me. Here's what I believe to be true. And I think that's a far more powerful embodiment of what nonconformity really means. It's making up your own rules to live by. So, unlike Morgan, it has taken me several more years to start making up my own rules, but the world of graphic novels has been really helping me shape that. For one, graphic novels offer alternative storylines, diverse perspectives that illustrate what the world could look like instead of what it should look like. How, you may be asking? Well, let's dive into some of my favorites. The first is a graphic novel called Lady Castle, and in this tale, it tells the tale of a kingdom whose men all take off to fight a crusade, and they leave the women behind in charge. Turns out the women are even better at defending the castle than the men. They're able to ward off monsters and curses using wit instead of sheer force. And one of my favorite parts of this graphic novel are when werewolves descend and they attack the castle. And instead of whipping out their weapons, these women strategize a plan to trap the werewolves at the top of the highest tower, revealing them to actually be friends rather than enemies at the end. Something else I appreciate about this graphic novel is the heroism that splashes across these pages. You have King Marimore, who leads the castle with wisdom and with patience and in one bitchin' outfit. And then you have Princess Eve, who is this Rapunzel gone rogue, and she abandons her long locks and her high tower to teach others how to fight. And something that I love is how this celebrates diverse forms of leadership and what that can look like. The next book is called American-Born Chinese, and in 3 seemingly separate tales, it tells a story of Jin, who is a first-generation child of immigrants, and Danny, who is a high school American teenager. And what stands out in this tale is its confrontation of some pretty serious racial stereotypes. Chin Ki, who is Danny's cousin, is this horrifying amalgamation of racist tropes that American media has thrust on Asians and Asian Americans. But what's surprising is near the end of this tale, this externalized form of hatred is internalized and manifested through some of the characters themselves, how they think of themselves, how they treat others. And the moral of the story here being that, yes, society's rules can influence us, but they can also infect us. But understanding that is a form of inoculation in and of itself. The third book is called Meal by Blue Delaquanti, and it introduces us to the world of entomophagy, or the practice of eating bugs. Yarrow, who's the main character, is obsessed with mealworms and growing her own worms and crickets, and she wants to help out a local Cambodian Mexican restaurant owner build up her insect-inspired cuisine. Little does Yara realize that despite her expertise, she has a lot to learn when it comes to entomophagy. It's not just this hip, trendy cuisine, but it's a heritage that has been built up for centuries. And so the lesson here is sometimes practices which may seem radical to us have roots beyond which are immediately visible. So, in summary, Some of the takeaways or lessons that I have learned from enjoying these graphic novels are as follows. 1, leaders aren't afraid to improvise. 2, healing can be the process of recognizing hatred within yourself. 3, some truths may be hidden from you, but it's your quest to go out and discover them. And 4, storytelling is a bridge to creating your own rules and redefining what nonconformity looks like in your own life. So keep reading. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Julie. Okay, for our last speaker for tonight, we have someone who calls herself, I didn't say this, she calls herself a wild mama. She's committed to teaching others how to keep their kids wild and loving nature. Please welcome Annie Fortunato.
I'm a wild mama. I'd like to start out with everyone closing their eyes. Close your eyes. And think about your favorite childhood memory. When you're ready, you can open them. Now, if you're anything like me, your favorite childhood memory probably had something to do with the outdoors. Playing in the backyard with your friends, building forts, watching sunsets, catching frogs. And something also tells me that it had nothing to do with sitting in front of a screen and watching television. But times have changed, and kids in 2019 are experiencing a much different childhood. Look, we all know kids are spending way too much time in front of a screen. And we all know the benefits of getting outside. Kids right now are spending 7 hours per day in front of a screen and a mere 12 minutes outside. The question is, how do we get children to love the outdoors? Well, it starts with all of you. That's right. Raising a generation to love the outdoors begins and ends with the adults in their lives. And I'm not just talking about parents, so you're not off the hook. I'm talking about grandparents, teachers, family, friends. We all have a responsibility to raise nature-loving children. The question is, how do we do that? Well, start early. It's much easier to get outside with a 4-month-old than a 14-year-old. So pop that baby in a carrier or in a stroller and take them for a walk in the neighborhood. Get them accustomed to the sights, smells, and sounds of the outdoors. The way the wind blows in their hair and the sounds of the birds chirping and the smell of a campfire. These create connections to the outdoors and a positive emotional response. Also, keep it simple. It's not rocket science, right? So it's not about scaling Mount Everest. Kids just find adventure wherever they go, in their backyard, at the neighborhood playground. Give them the space to explore at their own pace. I also know how busy it is, right? We have a hard time finding time in our regular day to get outside. So my family schedules it, just like soccer practice, put it in your daily schedule. And that may mean 30 minutes outside in your backyard, a hike every Sunday morning, or just finding small ways to get outside and incorporate it into your day, like having a picnic outside when it's warm outside. These really create a connection to the outdoors and habits that will last a lifetime. Find support is my biggest thing. In 2014, when my oldest was 3 years old, I founded the local branch of Hike It Baby. Hike It Baby Ann Arbor has been around since 2014, and it's a nonprofit dedicated to getting families with young children outside and on the trails. Their volunteer-led events give us support, so if I need somebody to buckle my carrier or if I've forgotten snacks at home, there's always someone there for me. Attitude is everything, so get excited. Get excited. So instead of saying, ew, look at that bug, maybe you tell your kids, wow, that bug looks really interesting. So a shift in your attitude is going to be a shift in your child's attitude as well. So just give that some thought as you're exploring the outdoors. Now, I also believe that everything is good in moderation, so use technology to your benefit. Geocaching is a great way to learn orienteering skills. There's also some really great apps out there like iNaturalist and iBird that create connections with the outdoors. Kids also do best when they have buy-in, so let them lead the way. And sometimes that means actually not going outside at all. My 8-year-old, who has been raised in the outside, as you can imagine, sometimes just does not feel like going in the outdoors. So I will let him watch nature-based TV shows and movies. At least if he's not out in nature, he's experiencing a virtual version of that. The key is to keep it motivating and positive. Don't force activities and let them choose how they want to explore. In the end, the key to unlocking the love of the outdoors begins and ends with the adults in their lives. The wonder and the love. Let them explore in the way that's meaningful and fun for them. These positive experiences that you give to them now will protect the world for the future. So how are you going to get outside today? Thank you.
Thank you, Annie, and thank you to all the speakers tonight. It's a big deal getting up on this stage, and we really appreciate you coming and sharing your stories and thoughts with us. Let's have a big hand for the speakers. And thank you again to the Ann Arbor District Library for hosting us. Well, let's say, if you're free, we should take a 2-block walk in nature down the street to Bar Louie to the patio. It's heated. It's heated. It's Michigan. It's fine. Bar Louie patio. You can chat with the speakers and each other. Hope to see you there.
All right, thank you all for coming. Just want to let you know about a couple other events coming up at the library in the next few days. On Saturday, we have the Ann Arbor Synth Expo. That'll be down in the basement from 1 to 4 p.m. All kinds of local synth experts. On Sunday, we have the launch of Fifth Avenue Press, which is a locally owned publishing imprint that's operated here by the library. 9 new books coming out by your friends and neighbors. So that's here at the downtown library on Sunday. And our Pittsfield branch reopens after 7 weeks of remodeling on Tuesday. So thank you all very much for coming, and have a great day.